We live in a punishment-focused society, and that is not me being dramatic. Literally, the legal system is based off of this old philosophy known as legalism that believes that humans are inherently evil or inherently bad and selfish. And in order to keep human beings in check, they need strict laws and strict punishment in order to ensure that they don't give in to their evil, naughty, selfish desires. I don't believe this philosophy is true. I don't believe that humans are inherently selfish and that's why humans do bad things. I believe that mostly, I'm not going to say all the time, and this is not making an excuse for harmful behavior, but I believe that mostly human beings, when they are struggling, they act out. And I believe that if we had a rehab focused approach rather than a punishment focused approach, we would be living in a much different world. The problem with punishment focused society, whether you believe that humans are inherently selfish or not, is that punishment has been shown to cause people to lie more, not cause people to modify behavior. So, punishment in itself isn't even a good form of correcting behavior. Punishment perpetuates cycles, right? A little kid gets punished for crying, and what does he do? He hides his tears and he releases his emotions in other ways. A little kid gets punished for lying, and what happens? They end up finding better ways to lie, to manipulate, to wear a mask. And on top of that, I would argue my intuition tells me that being punished for going through a struggle, for being confused, for being scared, for feeling hurt, and for acting out, being punished for struggling also causes trauma. So, on top of the child or the person learning to lie and become more manipulative as a defense mechanism, they're also traumatized. I would argue that what this does is then turns it into a situation where people are traumatized because they get punished for going through issues as children, for struggling as children, and they learn how to become more deceptive. So now they're angry and deceptive. Now they have resentment and they're deceptive. Why would a being who was punished for struggling as a child, why would they be in touch with their humanity and their empathy? Why would they feel they have to owe society anything? And I deeply feel that this conditioning, that punishment is the answer, is the reason that we have so many issues. This is not, again, to say do not have boundaries and allow people to have bad behavior. But I also do think that the more severe cases often are from the people with the least resources. And that isn't always monetarily and financially, because we know for a fact that crime rates are higher in poverty because there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Struggle, improper education, improper nutrition. The effects that improper education and improper nutrition have on your brain. For example, schools that are primarily focused on like state funding, they have to meet certain criteria, and that criteria leads to a lot of standardized testing to just get results. And those approaches have an impact on childhood brain development because of those approaches. These schools have to prioritize short-term memory. And when they prioritize short-term memory, cramming a bunch of information in at once, it's called rote memory recall. You can look it up. That teaches the child that it is not important to critically think, to think for themselves, to make their own decisions. It impacts child brain development. And that's not to say that it's something that people can't get out of. You can most certainly get out of it. But how are people even supposed to know to get out of it when they're taught not to think for themselves? And on top of that, malnourishment also impacts brain development in a lot of ways and leads to a lot of problems. So when children are struggling and we punish them because they're struggling, they become resentful and they learn how to lie. They lose touch with their empathy and they learn how to mask. And for most of society, this just turns into most people being out of touch, disconnected, a little jaded, masking all the time, learning how to lie to protect themselves in small and trivial ways. But for the most vulnerable, For the people with the least mental and physical resources, it can turn into a lot more serious things. We were all conditioned in this society that is punishment focused, that believes that at its core, humans are inherently selfish if left unchecked, and that humans act out because of our inherent bad nature. We were all conditioned with this, which means to get out of this cycle, we all have to be able to do the inner work on ourselves and thereby understand those around us. And that is an intense journey. It is active work. I'm going through it myself. And it's just like something that will take time. But before it to even happen, we as a society have to come to the same conclusion that punishment is not effective and it comes from a place that views us as inherently flawed rather than a place that views us as needing something extra, support of some nature. It views our bad behavior as a character flaw rather than as an outcry for help. And it would take a lot of effort, and it does take a lot of effort. But me on my own journey, I have noticed that doing this work with myself, giving myself more space, and thereby giving others more space, trying to, I'm not perfect, it's hard. But doing this work on myself then changes my behavior, and then that affects the people around me too. My approach changing changes my behavior and effectively changes how I interact with the world around me in such a way that is giving them more space and grace and literally changing like the energetic collective response to things within my own communities. And I have noticed that in times when I am struggling, the responses that I get back tend to be more fueling the flame. And when I am more conscious of this and when I am trying my best to change the way that I react and the way that I take in information and respond, that's when I get more understanding, more curiosity, more openness towards my reactions. And I have noticed that when I am harsh on myself, I end up being harsh on others, and others end up being harsh on themselves, and then they end up being harsh back to me. It's just like a repetitive cycle that feeds each other. Nobody's perfect all the time. We're all struggling, we're all going through things. But I've noticed that in this work that I've been doing over the last few years, my reality has significantly changed to one that is less punitive. And I'm committed to making it even less punitive because when I tap into the more rehabilitating, supportive energy, I see that mirrored back to me as well. People quit being bad or flawed, and I quit being bad or flawed. The people around me begin to be in the same space as me, scared, hurting, needing a little bit of understanding.